This is Bill Sendell, Tournament Director of the AT&T Junior Golf Association, and this is an introductory video to help you understand what our expectations are when you decide to volunteer for scoring. Volunteers are a very important part of our program, as most of you know, and we are encouraging as many parents to get involved in this process as possible. The first thing I want you to do when you volunteer for scoring is just relax. It's not life or death. It's not a huge deal. It's just you're giving back to our association. You're allowing us to continue to run our program successfully. So recognize how valuable you are to us. So try not to be nervous. And the second thing is just to revert to your parenting skills, which means you're going to assert yourself. You're going to assert your power in the group, not in a mean way, but just in an authoritative way, to where the kids are going to know you're in charge. And I would say if you relax and you let them know that you're in charge, that things will run smoothly. We're going to go through some details now of what you might experience out there when you're scoring a group. The first step in the scoring process is going to require you to learn the 4 players' names. Usually what I like to do is I'll write all 4 names down on the scorecard, or I'll ask you to, and maybe pick out an article of clothing or something that will remind you of what that person's name is, whether it's a hat or a shirt or a sweater, and just write that down next to their name. The next thing you're going to want to do is obviously introduce yourself. Usually I'll be there. I may introduce you personally, and then you're going to want the kids to introduce themselves to each other, just so everybody's friendly. That gets things off to a good start. For the first hole, the order of play will be determined by the scores that were made on the hole by each individual player, and that will continue to change as each hole goes by. Okay, so the low score will always have the honor, so to speak. The next lowest score will go second, the next lowest score will go third, and the next lowest score will go fourth. So you're always going from the low score to the high score when teeing off. If there's a tie, you revert back to what the order was on the previous hole. One of the biggest things that volunteers are nervous about is knowing the rules well enough. Please be assured you don't need to have the rule book memorized. You just need to know a few basic rules. I'm going to call Mike Pinkney in next. He's going to be my assistant this year at the tournaments. You'll see him. And we're just going to go over some basic rules that you need to know out there in order to function properly as a scorekeeper. And for the more complicated rules, all you need to do is report that situation to the tournament committee, which is myself, and I'll make the decision on that particular rule. Okay? So we'll go ahead and get into it next. The first rule we're going to go over is out of bounds. As you can see, out of bounds is designated by white stakes. On this side of the white stake, this is the field of play. This ball is located outside the field of play, therefore it's out of bounds. The penalty on an out of bounds is stroke and distance. So what that means is the player needs to go back to the place where he originally hit this particular shot. Okay, so there's a 1-stroke penalty for that, then he has to go back and hit another ball. So basically it equates into a 2-stroke penalty. So if a player makes a 3 and had an out of bounds, that's a 5. This is a ball that has actually crossed a hazard line. Okay, the red stakes delineate a hazard. Okay, this is different than the out of bounds. The out of bounds, as you'll recall, was a stroke and distance penalty. This is just a stroke penalty. The player has 2 options here. He can play the shot, but he's not allowed to ground his club. That's option 1. Option 2 is to take relief. That would be from the point of entry, which in this case is right where my foot is. So the player would get 2 club lengths from this position, 1-stroke penalty, and he would drop the ball here. And just a quick reminder about sand traps. The player is not allowed to ground their club in the sand trap when they're addressing their shot. They need to hover the club just above the sand and then play their shot. If they do happen to ground their club, it's a 1-stroke penalty. In this situation, the player's ball has come to rest in what I would term an unplayable lie. And I'm going to go through just a couple of options that the player has on how to deal with this sort of a situation. Okay? You can always suggest an unplayable lie if it looks like the player could possibly get injured. For instance, this rock, that's a good opportunity to suggest an unplayable lie. So I'm just going to give you 2 options. There's 5 total, but I'm just going to give you 2, and this should satisfy your needs as a scorekeeper. The first one is that the player can take 2 club lengths, the nearest point of relief, at a 1-stroke penalty. That's the first option. The second option is he can go back as far as he wants between where the ball is located and the hole. If you draw an imaginary line through those 2 points, he can go as far back on that line as he wants to go, also at the cost of 1 stroke. Okay, so your group has now arrived at the first green. Okay, and there's some interesting rules around the green that I want to go over with you. First of all, who grabs the flag stick? Generally, since you've already put yourself in an authoritative role at this point, you're going to grab the flag stick for the most part, especially if you're dealing with bronze division players. Silver division, most of them know that the person that's closest to the hole will generally grab the flag stick. The person that's farthest away from the hole will have the honor and putt first. And then once everybody's holed out, whoever holed out first will generally put the flag stick back in. But for the bronze division groups, as I said, in all likelihood, the scorekeeper is going to be removing and putting the flag stick back in. Probably the most frequent rule I see violated is the marking of the ball. So I want to show you how a player should mark his ball properly. If the player doesn't mark his ball this way, don't penalize him, but just explain to him how you'd like to see it marked. Here's my ball located here, and the hole is about 10 feet away. The proper way to mark a ball is to take a ball marker or a coin of some sort, stick it right behind the ball. Now your ball is marked properly. When I go back to putt and it's my turn, I want to put the ball back in the same spot. I don't want to put it to the right, left, behind. I want to put it in the exact same spot where the ball was previously, and then remove the mark. Now it's in play. Okay, in this situation, my assistant Mike Pinkney has hit it inside of me, as usual. So I am away, therefore it's my honor. Mike's ball is going to distract me, so Mike is going to step in and mark his ball at this point. It's now my turn to putt. I'm going to hit my putt. Okay, and I came up a bit short and a bit right. Okay, now I have two options at this particular point. I can step in and finish my putt. That's option one. Option two, I can mark. The second most frequent rule or etiquette I see violated, especially from the bronze division kids, is a lack of awareness in the line that Mike's ball is on. His ball is going to be here. The hole is here. It's my responsibility to make sure that his line here is not affected by me walking across and possibly indenting it or creating some sort of damage that's going to hurt his ability to make his putt. So if I choose to make this putt, I'm going to walk around Mike's line. I'm going to be aware of his line, and then I will straddle his line and tap in. We're in the same scenario we were just in, and Mike, as a good playing companion, as you can see, while I'm standing over my putt, he's standing to the side. And a lot of times we're playing on sunny days and there's shadows that may potentially make their way across a competitor's line. That's an etiquette breach, and what we want to recommend to our players is that they move away so their shadows don't distract the player's ability to hit the putt. You don't want to be moving, and you also don't want to be in the player's line of sight. So you don't want to be standing here right behind the hole either. Okay, so to the side, either the right or the left, out of my field of vision, is the best place to stand while I'm attempting my putt. There's no place that's more important for you to assert yourself as a scorekeeper than on the putting green. A lot of the kids, especially the younger ones, are not going to know when it's their turn to putt. It's your job to direct them and move play along. A lot of times I'll see 4 kids standing around waiting for the adult to tell them what to do. Ideally, the first 3 holes you're going to tell them what to do and why, and then on the last 6 holes they'll probably get into the rhythm and you won't have to mention it. But definitely take control of the group, especially on the putting green. If you see a breach of etiquette, or if you see a person not marking the ball properly, definitely take care of that right there on the first hole that you see it. At the end of each hole, for the silver and bronze division, obviously has the scorekeeper, but that doesn't mean the kids still aren't responsible for knowing what they scored on a hole. At the end of each hole, you're going to ask them what their score was and just make sure it matches what you wrote down for them. And then at the end of the round, make sure that you go through hole by hole, and just so they have an awareness of their score and how important it is to be accurate before you turn it into me. Then once I get the scorecard, I'll double check the scores and then I'll put them on the scoreboard. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and to consider scoring. It would really help out our association, and it would possibly enable you to create some new friendships. These kids really look up to the adults, and it's a great way to get involved in your community. So Mike and I will look forward to seeing you at this summer's events. Thank you.